It's okay. Okay, no, but for real. Hi, my name is jELeeoo, also known as Johann Birch. I'm the author of 2 books, What's Your Problem? And Hold On a Minute, although this video is being recorded before this one released, but it's out by the time this video comes out, so don't worry about why I'm holding the proof copy. You should pick it up either way. Anyways, that's not what this video is about. This video is about this book, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I think it took him about 10 years to write this book, and it came out in 2000, and it's, it's a book. But it has quite the infamous reputation. I've heard it been described as the Tumblr book. I've heard it been described as the, you don't get this book. I've heard it been described as the Wes Anderson of books, which makes me laugh. And today I'm going to tell you that I think it is just okay. Now, first of all, if you like this book, if this is your favorite book of all time, that's good. Good for you. You know, I'm not trying to say you're like, oh, you're dumb for liking this book. No, that's not what this is. This is just like, a lot of people have been telling me it's really good. I thought it was just okay. I just want to explain my point of view because I haven't really heard people complain about it that much. Because, like, I've heard people make negative opinions about this book, but the things that I have problems with, nobody's really talked about, and I want to talk about that. So I should probably let you know that I've known about this book for a while, and, you know, I've known of its infamous reputation. See, the main selling point that people use for this book is, let me find a page for an example. The text is all like this sometimes on pages. The text gets all screwy and it's all like unique, bro, and it's not like the other books, you know? The author likes to play with words a lot, and I really like that. I love playing with words. I love fucking around with them. You know, I don't want to brag, but this book does that a lot. You should pick it up. Haha. And, like, it plays with it in very meaningful ways. Like, for an example, there's a page where, like, one of the main characters finds a doorway to go through, like, after wandering through a labyrinth, and the page is, like, just has these small little words to be in the shape of the doorway, you know, and, it gets smaller and smaller because it keeps getting further away. That's cool. I like that. I'm not going to spoil the entire book, but I am going to just introduce, like, the basic story real quickly. So House of Leaves is a meta-narrative. There's a bunch of stuff going on, you know, and there's 2 main plots to follow. The first plot is about Johnny Truant. Essentially, Johnny and his friend one day go to a dead guy's apartment to just, like, steal some stuff before it's all, like, thrown away. And Johnny finds this huge stack of papers called the Navidson Record. And he decides to, like, translate it and make it into a book to publish. And the second plot is the contents of that book called the Navidson Record, which is about this family moving into a house. And then one day, just a closet just appears in the house. Like, it makes no sense. And then they take measurements of the house, and it appears to be bigger on the inside, but only by like 3/4 of an inch, which I think is like really funny. And then a hallway just appears, and that hallway leads into like just an impossible labyrinth. And that's just like the main, like, that's the plot you're going to be following. Why does the camera keep going out of focus? Come on. Okay, you know what? No, this is gonna be an artistic video that is it's out of focus on purpose, just like the Navidson Record. You know, it does things weirdly on purpose, you know? Yeah. I have artistic integrity. Now, see, my main problem with the book is that sometimes, because of like the way it words stuff and like that, I think people hyped it up to me a bit too much when it turns out the book was more style over substance. And that's not to say there's no substance. There is substance, and what substance there is, I really like. But it's sometimes like, I feel like people act like this is the greatest book ever made, and I just do not feel like that. To show you an example of what I mean, this is my commonplace notebook, is what I call it. Basically, it's a notebook where I like write down the page number and then like the section of the page I'm talking about, and I just write down my thoughts on it. And here's the section covering House of Leaves. And when I finish a book, I total like the amount of notes that I made, and then like a rating, and then my thoughts, general thoughts on it. And for House of Leaves, there were a total of 101 notes, right? That may seem like a lot, but for some reason, and I say for some reason, this reason is going to be very obvious when I get to it. For the first book in this commonplace notebook, I had 120 notes for Stoner by John Williams. Now, you may notice, but this book is a lot smaller, and if I flip through it, it's just words. By the way, this is one of the greatest books ever made. I would highly recommend it to anybody. It's like my second favorite book to ever exist. It's so good. It changed my life. I love it. John Williams is a genius. And this is my second commonplace notebook. If I were to get my first one, you would see a book like Hollywood by Charles Bukowski and see that there's like 150 notes for this one. Because this is just like, it's mostly just about the humor of this book. This is a very humorous book. But I had a lot more to say about these two books when there are, notice a lot more words in this book right here. I'm pointing to House of Leaves. I should probably get it out again. So it's style over substance. What do I mean by that? I mean that I feel like the book is more focused on like selling you the horror of the labyrinth in the house more than it does the actual narrative. Now, I don't necessarily mind that, and I like horror. I like horror. I like horror movies. I like horror games. I like haunted houses when they're not just strobe lights. But I'm also not really scared by them, and that's something that I've always had a problem with in literature. I've never really been into horror literature because I can never really feel immersed by it. Like, because I'm the one picturing all this stuff, like creating the images of what I'm reading in my head, I sort of think like, these guys suck. Like, if I were to read It by Stephen King, you're telling me that the way to beat this guy is to simply just not be afraid of him? I know that's not how it is in the book. That's how it is in the movie, but just go with me here. So if I'm picturing just a clown, like I'm now just imagining a middle-aged clown, and all I have to do is just exude confidence over him, and I can beat him in a fight. I'm a 5'8" little bitch. I would probably lose a fight, but if I believe I can win, I will win. Come on, game on. Show up, Pennywise. Catch these hands. So that's something I've always had a problem with in terms of horror literature, and people have been saying, this book changes your life. I can never be in a dark room again. I can most certainly be in a dark room after reading House of Leaves. And this brings me to like my first real complaint about the book, and that is Johnny's narrative. I'm not going to spoil too much, but Johnny... basically the way it works is that he finds this book, he wants to translate it into like an actual book and publish it, and so every now and then you'll get footnotes from Johnny, either explaining more on what the original author, the old guy, was talking about, or he just talks about his personal life and how the Navidson record is affecting him. And this goes either one of two ways every time. He either goes mad from reading the Navidson record, like a Lovecraft character gaining forbidden knowledge, or he has sex with a woman. Now, this is like a whole nother subject matter, but I don't really like gratuitous sex scenes in books and stuff like that. You know, because I feel like it's very distracting, takes away from like the part of the book that I'm interested in. Like, if I wanted porn, I would watch porn. But I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for House of Leaves. I'm looking for a character going into a house, and it's crazy. So again, going back to this whole like imagining the horror thing, when it comes to Johnny going insane from reading the Navidson record, I find it very funny because like, how do you go that mad from reading this? Like, it's cool. There's like some cool spectacle to it, but like the lengths Johnny goes to because of the Navidson record is really quite humorous. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but like there's like one time like he tapes tape measures all over his apartment to like see if like his walls or ceiling has grown. Bro, it's so distracting from like the main narrative. And I like Johnny's, like I think the idea of having these two narratives coincide is really cool, but it's just so poorly done in my opinion. I want Johnny's descent into madness to be more believable, and he clearly has a history of mental illness. There's a part where it refers to you to one of the appendices. By the way, there's like a 200-page appendix at the end of the book, and like one of those appendices is a bunch of letters that Johnny's mother sent to him while she was in a mental hospital, and like that gives you a lot of backstory to Johnny, and I think that's really cool. So it's obvious that he definitely is susceptible to going mad, but I don't think it's to the level that the book conveys. Very unbelievable. Also, it's just a lot boring compared to Navidson's story, and that brings me to Navidson's story. Navidson's story, for the most part, is really good. I loved it. It's so good. It's really cool. But there are a lot of times where a chapter will just like take way too long to explain a concept that you probably already know before it gets to actually talking about something. For example, chapter 5, it goes on and on and on and on, just explaining like the mathematicals, like specifics of an echo, like a sound echo. And like it kind of circles back to that because like the whole like main theme of chapter 5 is that like the Navidson hears echoes. And I'm not going to spoil like exactly the details, but it's important that like you're hearing echoes, right? But I don't think we need a scientific explanation of how echoes work. It is so distracting and like it goes on for pages, entire pages. And granted, there's a footnote where Johnny was like, you could skip this if you want. I found it boring. And like, it's like, you know, it's kind of a cheeky fuck you, but at the same time, fuck you. You wasted my time, you know? And like, even if the book is telling me to skip that, it doesn't change the fact that it's still there, you know? If you think a video game cutscene has bad writing, skipping it, yeah, you're not going to experience that bad writing, but that doesn't change the fact that the writing exists and it is bad, you know? You're just ignoring it instead of confronting that problem. You know, if something smells bad and you just contain it in a jar, like, okay, you're not smelling it anymore, but the smell still exists. You need to clean out whatever is in that jar. I also think that the ending of the Navidson record is a little underwhelming. Johnny's story, his ending, I like. I think it's very fitting. I kind of saw it coming, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It was what I was expecting, but what I was expecting was good. I liked it. But Navidson's story, I was expecting it to go one way and it didn't. And I'm not necessarily mad that my expectations were subverted. You know, I'm not a Last Jedi hater. Well, I am, but not in that way. It was very abrupt, you know? Like, it reached the climax, and then it's immediately to the resolution. It doesn't feel like there's any falling action whatsoever. Like, I'm not joking. Chapter 20 is like the climax of the Navidson record, and then chapter 21 is the conclusion of Johnny's story, and then chapters 22 and 23 are the end of the Navidson record, right? But they're all, like, both of those chapters combined is like 10 pages total. It feels so underwhelming and so abrupt, and it was very disappointing, you know? And I don't mind if it's like meant to be underwhelming for being just like to be like surprising, like, oh, that's life, you know, haha, teehee. It was just so abrupt again. Like, it feels like it skims over all the things that happened. It feels like it was just trying to rush to the end, and I really don't like that. The ending definitely soured my mood on this book. And again, I just don't think it does horror well. I saw a TikTok or YouTube short today, and you know, I'll play it on screen right now.
40% I have left. Making a TikTok to tell you that now it's the perfect time to start House of Leaves.
Hey there, buddy. Me and Bunbug McFluffface here have decided to make a video to tell you that that's an awful fucking plan. The only time that you should read House of Leaves is when you're outside in the daylight. You have a 100% cell phone battery, you have a backup battery, your therapist has been paid in advance, you have a flare gun, and an inflatable raft and about 47 tape measures. So why don't you just put the book down and play some Candy Crush on your phone? Okay? Okay.
Also, link in the description if you want to watch it again, I guess. But that that makes me laugh because it's really not that scary to me. You know, and I've read it in the dark. Normally, I read on my bed. I keep the book that I'm currently reading up there, which, by the way, I'm currently reading Butcher's Crossing by John Williams, same guy who wrote Stoner. I'm only like 10 pages into it, but so far it's pretty good. Again, I have my full faith in John Williams just because Stoner was such a good book. Anyways, I keep the book that I'm reading up there, and I have a little desk lamp, so I turn off all the lights in my room except for that little desk lamp, and I'm in bed reading it, you know? If I'm in total darkness, you know? And again, I'm just not that scared because, you know, I've never heard of an impossible house. I've certainly heard of people getting lost in super huge places and entering psychosis and getting mad, but I'm not gonna be going that far. There's also the case to be made about supernatural horror versus like grounded horror. Again, I'm also not that scared because, you know, it's a fictional scenario, you know? I'd be more scared of a person with a knife running at me than a super long, dark hallway in real life. Like, if I had to go down through a huge, super long hallway to, like, flip a breaker switch, I would be significantly less scared than I was if, like, a person was coming to kill me. And which brings me to my last point. I also think the prose is a little off. And I don't really know how to explain it other than by comparison. So let me talk about Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis for a little bit. If you don't know, Bret Easton Ellis is a well-known author, American author, and he wrote, this was his first book, Less Than Zero, but he also wrote American Psycho, the book, and he like helped in the movie production, I think. But a lot of his books tend to not really be horror per se, but thriller, but there are definitely horror elements in it. And Less Than Zero has a lot of very disturbing scenes that literally made me feel uneasy after reading them. I'm not going to spoil anything, because I don't like spoilers, but one of the main things is that this is a real, like, it could happen. The things that happen in this book could very well happen in real life, because this book is mostly just a bunch of college kids getting high at parties, right? While fucked up shit goes on in the background. But also, the way it words things. Sometimes it'll have like sentences about the most disturbing things happening in a very detached, apathetic way. So matter-of-factly. Did my camera die? Okay, my camera died, so I'm now using my phone camera, which I'm balancing on top of my camera. I'm almost done, so I'll just wrap up. But yeah, the prose of the horror scenes in this book got to me significantly more than the horror scenes in House of Leaves. And that's a huge thing that, like, I'm not really scared of House of Leaves. I'm scared of this book, Less Than Zero. You know, another book to bring up is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I haven't, like, read the book myself. I'm going to read it soon-ish. But I've read certain scenes. That's why I bought it. And some of the scenes also kind of get to me in the same way that Less Than Zero does. I genuinely don't want to read more Bret Easton Ellis because I'm just not in a mental space to, like, be prepared for the horrific things I know I'm going to read. You know, and the similar thing can be said about certain movies or manga, you know, and like, oh, it's just showing you it's different. No, it's not. There's certain ways to do things in many different languages in cinema. The language of cinema. I'm not conveying this point well at all. Look, conclusion statement to this video. I read House of Leaves and I thought it was just okay because I think people hyped it up too much for me. People said it was like a life-changing experience, and although yes, the way it like messes with the words is very cool, I do like that, I don't think it was enough to really captivate me in the same way as a book like Stoner did, or Less Than Zero. And also, it didn't really get me like thinking, you know? There's a part in Johnny's story where, like, he's, like, having nightmares about the stuff he reads in the Navidson record. He's staying up at night just staring at the ceiling, just thinking about what he's read. I don't have that. I never have that experience when reading House of Leaves. I've had it. I've stayed up at night thinking about my life choices when I read Stoner, because it asked that question of why shouldn't we just be detached from everything and not really care if everything is inconsequential? Similarly, again, with Less Than Zero, I'm grabbing it a lot because it's right there and Stoner's behind me. In Less Than Zero, I stayed up thinking about, damn, that's fucked up. That's what just happened was fucked up. I'm not going to spoil it. And also I'm not going to talk about it because this video will probably get removed if I did talk about it. But it's fucked up. And like, I was up at night being like, this boy wrote this as his first novel. And also, you know, like, I could also see the disturbing things in that book happening in real life and stuff like that, because stuff like that has happened in real life. I can't say the same about House of Leaves. But anyways, yeah, that's all I got to say. Sorry that this entire last 3 minutes have been kind of rotated, or I can fix it in post, I think. But anyways, yeah. This is my book, Hold On a Minute. This is my book, What's Your Problem? Link in the description below to check them out. I would appreciate it if you gave me the money. I also make videos about mostly video games on this channel, but sometimes other stuff, like books. You know, I have a book called Top 10 Books That Inspired Me, and House of Leaves is on that list. Don't worry. But although I didn't finish it at that time. But, yeah. Thank you for watching. Again, if you like the book, I'm not trying to, like, diminish your experience reading it. I'm just sharing my experience reading it. And, yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.